Well, you shared a story that actually blew me away. I would say the closest thing to frightening me about the future that I have read in a long time, and it got shared in a network of people that I'm with that I think are very discerning about what they read, and they all agreed that what you wrote about was something people should know and understand is going on. And that's your article about a guy that had cameras placed on his property by the government, and when he went to remove it, he was the one breaking the law. So break down that story, man. What was going on there?
Vance, maybe you're a farmer with several thousand acres. Maybe you're a landowner with such. But even if you're not, it's quite likely that maybe, Vance, you have 10 acres here, 2 acres here. And whether you've got 10 or you've got 10,000, those acres are precious to us. And we have certain assumptions on them. And that is, when you put your posted sign up or your no trespassing sign up, you expect privacy, and you expect at least a modicum of distance from the government. That's simply not the case. And what I'm referring to is called the open fields doctrine. A lot of people have just simply never heard of the open fields doctrine, and it's such a relevant law or statute that it's a shocker to find out people don't know about it. And it stems from 1924 case and a 1984 case in the Supreme Court. But before I even go there, what's relevant right this second is a guy named Hunter Hollingsworth and a fellow named Terry Rainwaters, two landowners. Both of them own relatively small acreage, maybe 100 acres apiece in Tennessee. And back in the winter of 2017, 2018, Hollingsworth was, I believe don't quote me on these details, but I'm pretty dang close, Vance. He was going duck hunting one morning. He went on to his land, which was posted, no trespassing, gates, and so on. He didn't live there. This was hunting ground. This was farm ground. He was using the farm ground to basically raise corn and beans that he would feed the wildlife, so he wasn't sending this crop to market. And as he was rounding a bend one morning to go duck hunting, his headlights on his side-by-side flashed, I think it was 8-10 feet up on a tree. He thought, maybe I'm looking at an old deer stand. Maybe I'm looking at an old, maybe a coon, the eyes of a coon, something flashed. So he stopped, got up there and shone his light, and sure enough, there was a trail camera there. He could see the functioning of the trail camera, the beeping and so on. He could see a sawed limb or two. And it was a little bit chancy that he even saw the camera at all because of the way his headlights had flashed. Well, he was nervous as an alley cat. Not his camera. It's on his land. He went ahead and took the camera down. And when he looked at the pictures that were on the camera, there was a Tennessee wildlife vehicle on there. There were a few people on there putting the camera up that he thought he recognized possibly as game wardens. I've seen one of the photos. It's blurry, so very difficult to tell. But regardless, he recognized who had put the camera up at that point. So, make a long story short, he took the camera into his possession, and eventually, Tennessee Wildlife and Fish and Wildlife came after him. They sent somewhat of a SWAT team to his house. They raided his house one morning to retrieve that camera. And he went to court and he lost. And the reason he lost partially is because the judge relied on this open fields doctrine, which I'll put in a nutshell. If your listeners and viewers don't get anything today, this would be the cogent point to at least take away. The open fields doctrine says that you are protected, as in the Fourth Amendment, from search and seizure on your body, on your house, and essentially on your yard. It's an arcane term called curtilage, which would be maybe the acre or two around your house. Let me repeat that. It'd be on your body, it'd be in your house, and it would be the little area around your yard. When you get past that, right, the judge said you have no right to protection from search and seizure by the government. So
that's insane. That's insane. No one knows that. Like no regular person assumes that's the case. You assume if you own your property, people can't just roll onto your property. The government can't just show up and put a camera there. You're already at the point where I'm like, this is bizarro world.
Right, Vance. It produces, I think, in your normal American, it produces the visceral reaction, right? It raises the hairs up on the back of your neck. It makes you bow up a little bit because it doesn't compute. But what it stems from is a 1924 case, which 24 was in the middle of Prohibition, and it involved illegal liquor. The 1984 case that also backs up open fields and allows the government to come on your land involves marijuana. So the idea of open fields was, hey, if the government needs to come in to seize liquor, if you've got to steal somewhere, or if you've got illegal marijuana grows, they can come in to get that stuff. The problem is that once you take that and you extrapolate and you go beyond, where do you stop? So when I contacted the Tennessee Wildlife and Fish and Wildlife, National Fish and Wildlife, I had several questions I thought were relevant, such as who owns the footage, right? So Vance, I'm just going to throw you out there. If we put a camera up, unbeknownst to you, beyond your yard, and we film you, right, or we take pictures of you, who owns the footage? Who at the law departments is allowed to see the footage? How many cameras are out there? How many cameras can they put on Vance's land? The questions go on forever, right? For example, if your wife, Vance, if your girlfriend, if your daughter is out there sunbathing, or if she goes to the bathroom and she's captured on camera, or if two people are sharing a private moment on their private land, Lord, we're all humans. If that's captured on camera, who is allowed to see the footage? And they refused with a blanket to answer any questions about the case, period.
They wouldn't even answer?
Wouldn't even comment, period. They directed all questions. Let's see. I think I'm telling you this right. Tennessee Wildlife deflected all questions to the Attorney General's office, who also wouldn't answer. But I'll get into all this, Vance. Usually what happens in these cases is the government just says we can't comment on pending litigation. But once litigation ends, we're still not going to comment. So it's just a double. It's ridiculous. But in the case of this Hollingsworth fella that I told you about in the beginning, there was another guy named Rainswater. The exact same thing happened to him, except I believe he had 2 cameras on his land. His son found the cameras. Now, just as an aside here, this makes it real human. I think it's fair to say that what appears to have happened, Vance, in the Rainswaters and Hollingsworth cases is they had a past of run-ins with the game wardens. Rainswater's son had hunting violations, and Hollingsworth had hunting violations. And Hollingsworth told me, he said, man, I'm guilty of some of these things. But the idea that you can take a fellow with hunting violations and then without probable cause, without a search warrant, you can then monitor his ground, to most Americans has a degree of outrage. There's a key point here also. This is where it gets really creepy, Vance, very creepy. Those cameras that they had were not just taking still photos, for example, of Hollingsworth's land. They had SIM card in there. So whenever he entered his land or left it, somebody at TWRA was getting either an email or a text or both telling them this fella's leaving, this fella's coming. Now, you don't even have to have words. Again, it strikes you somewhere in your core as this is very odd. I guess, Vance, what's going to happen in this case, and what's happening right now, is a pro bono organization called Institute for Justice has taken the Rainswaters cases and the Hollingsworth cases, and they are representing those 2 fellas. And the bottom line of Institute for Justice is, hey, we're in Tennessee. Tennessee State Constitution will protect these 2 landowners. And there are several states like Mississippi, Montana, Vermont. There's several states where your state constitution protects you from such, but nationwide, there's almost no protection. So I think that after the 1924 case and the 1984 case, we are once again headed for open fields to go right back to the 9 black robes. And I don't know if it'll happen, within the next 5-10 years, but I think it's going to happen because of the effects now of modern technology. I mean, you can put a camera on somebody's land and get nonstop footage. And by the way, I also asked the wildlife department, I said, do y'all have a list of the cameras that are out there on people's land? And how many cameras do y'all have? No answer, man. No answer.
Well, outrageous. I mean, like at this point, how does he even know if he got all the cameras? I mean, they maybe got one up there, but how do you know there's not 5 other ones?
Excellent point. Excellent point.
You're right. This really touches off something deep inside of me, because what is private property? Like if they can know when you're coming and leaving and they can take photographs on it, how is this different from it being the government Sherwood Forest, where they own all of everything on there and they get to control it? I mean, this goes to dark places really, really fast, in particular because the scope and scale of technology is only going to empower people that have the ability to walk onto your property, put a camera up. And how is it not possible that they were trespassing when they went onto the property to begin with?
Right. The government has access to the land, Vance, if it's not that curtilage around your house, the house, or your personal property. It makes no sense to most of us. And again, if you're a farmer and you've got 4,000 acres, right, you assume people are not walking around on your land. Private citizens can't. You can catch them and throw them off. If it's the government, yeah, they at this point in most states can do what they want. Most people don't. They don't realize that. But let me emphasize again, if you've got a guy like Hollingsworth and he has a camera up on a tree on his property, and indeed he gets out to use the bathroom, or his girlfriend does, and she gets caught on camera, people are going to snicker, right, and laugh. Well, what if that's your wife or your girlfriend, right, or your daughter? There's no snickering now. This can happen to all of us. And look, most game wardens, my Lord, great fellas. It just takes a couple of rogues to be allowed to go on and sneak cameras onto guys' lands. And bottom line is, you should have to go to a judge and present what you suspect to get a search warrant. Or if it's in the moment, then you have to have probable cause. That seems reasonable to most people. But again, that's not what is going on, Vance.
So you said it's going to go to 9 robes. What happens in the meantime? I mean, if you're a guy that's already had somebody placing cameras on your property, you must feel as though somebody is watching you at all times. I would never be able to escape that. In fact, I think that was the most haunting part about reading your article, was I started wondering, like, well, what is my domicile, right? I've got a little bit of property. Is it just the area that I mow? What happens if there's, maybe 50 feet in the back area I don't want to mow? Does that mean that they can now check that out? That I absolutely don't want cameras on here.
Yeah, Rangewater claimed Rangewater actually lived on his land. He lived there with his son, and he had another smaller house where a tenant lived. And he claimed that the camera that TWR placed could pick up footage of the tenant's backyard. That's what he claimed. I don't know that for a fact. So that, if that's the case, Vance, would even break the curtilage rule, where they could see onto the back area of where this fella lived. Patently wrong in so many ways, man. So many. And Hollingsworth told me, man, he said, I've just got this feeling like somebody's watching me all the time. I check my vehicle. I look under my vehicle. Are they audio taping me? Are they videotaping me? Rangewater said the same thing. I can't imagine what that feeling's like. But that case, like I said, it's going to go to Supreme Court maybe someday. And I would imagine I'll probably write another article on that at some point.
Thanks for checking out this podcast short. If you like this interview, hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe.
Also, if you're interested in these kinds of conversations and you want to support the podcast, you may consider joining the Articulate Ventures Network. There you can get classes that will help you become a tangibly better communicator, but you'll also be introduced to a wide network of people that have different ways of thinking and live all over the world. We hold classes and sessions that help people practice saying what they think and getting feedback on how good are those ideas and how well did you say them. So if you're interested in joining that, go to articulate.ventures to find out more.